Hey, good morning, friends and neighbors. Good morning, sisters and brothers. We're here for another edition of Live from the Heartland at Home. This is number 18 for the week of August 30th. And we've got a lot of good things to talk about, and we are really happy that we're going to bring on our Congresswoman, Jan Schakowsky. As is our tradition in this new way of putting out our show, we'd like to start off by saying something that we did this week that was good, enjoyable, and positive. And I'll start by saying I had the honor of driving one of my kids down to near Kankakee to pick up some musical equipment. And we went through the Cook County Forest Preserve and this prairie. It was just beautiful. I thought I was in a covered wagon whipping along, heading west. It was very beautiful, and I recommend that people explore their parks and the nature that it really surrounds us. How about you, Tom?
We had a chance to practice school. Our grandson actually said, well, it looks like you grandparents and mom are going to be teaching me this fall. How's it going to work? So we did a practice day of school, and it was actually fun. And then we got CPS's schedule for the day, and we don't know how this is going to work. Parents, families, households, we got some real challenges coming up. But that one day of school before school starts was a lot of fun. Katie, what about yourself?
I got in the lake twice. Jump in the lake, folks. It's always been my advice.
Well, you got to go early or you got to go late, because otherwise
That's right.
they won't let you in.
I go between 7 and 8 in the morning, or 6 and 8, whatever. Let's see. Let's get into our news. Let's catch people up about the CPS vote on keeping what they call the SROs, the police contracts of police in schools. Tom, you got the latest on that?
Well, I'm sure the organizers and the students have been trying to get cops out of schools are disappointed, but they did achieve a minor victory by getting 2/3 of the police contract cut. And I try to look for a silver lining in everything these days with everything else going on in the world. And, if we don't get the kids back in school, nothing gets paid out on the contract. If they're not in the school, we don't need cops to watch them, right? So, Katie, what made your mind explode this week? And then I think we should go and talk to Jan.
Well, it's continuing. It's the ongoing explosion. Earlier this very week, the CDC was pressured to change its guidance on testing for asymptomatic people exposed to the virus. They were instructed by higher-ups to modify their testing guidelines to exclude people who do not have symptoms of COVID-19, even if they've been exposed. So last night, when after we prepared this piece of our show, there was an announcement on TV that said the CDC was backing off of that. And I'm just going to leave it right with that, saying, this is the way this has gone, folks. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Wash your clothes in hot, wash your clothes. It's so irresponsible of this administration, who finished their convention saying what a great job they've done with COVID, if you can possibly swallow that. So let's bring on somebody who knows what's going on. I think we're going to have a little music interlude. Is that right?
That is right. And we thought we should mark the Labor Day weekend by bringing in a little appropriate music, and then we will join our Congresswoman.
Boy, are we ever happy to have our friend and our longtime Congresswoman with us this morning. Just this week, we celebrated 100 years of the right to vote for you and me, my sister. Let's pray that the suburban gals win this election this year. That's what I heard so much of at the end of the Republican convention. How are you holding up, Jan Schakowsky?
I am so excited about the opportunity to finally rid ourselves of what is essentially what they plan, even more of a fascist United States of America, and ushering in a really progressive era where we can make some, and we better do it fast, undo some of the bad and start moving really quickly to save our country. I mean, he could not have put us in a worse situation right now. But it's not going to be a cakewalk. I mean, he,
Can I ask you, I
yeah.
mean, given that we are reeling from the recent officer-involved shooting right here in our own backyard, and
In Ocean.
what followed, the incredible what followed. How will we be able to kind of programmatically, politically, effectively acknowledge Black Lives Matter's movement and the need for overhauling policing and criminal justice system for starters, but to really address racism in our country, which a lot of people in the street seem willing and able to, but do the people in DC feel willing and able to you?
Well, we don't care about the people in DC. The reason that the Justice and Policing Act actually was called on, understand, this was never on the agenda of the United States Congress, period. We're dealing with a lot of other things. That includes the Democrats too. We hadn't anticipated this. And the only reason it got on the agenda is because really hundreds of thousands of people around the country demanded it. They hit the streets and demanding that Black Lives Matter and that we actually do something about this. And I've never seen legislation pass as quickly as it did in the House of Representatives to get the Justice in Policing Act, which is, by the way, very different from what the Republicans offered, which was we suggest this and we encourage that. Whereas our legislation mandates, requires, and all kinds of changes, not the least of which ending chokeholds, et cetera. But here's the thing. The Republicans have decided to use this issue in the exact opposite way, to frighten as Donald Trump calls them, the suburban housewives, into thinking, actually, we want to get rid of suburbia altogether, not to mention the fear that housewives ought to have. I don't think that's going to happen.
It's kind of ridiculous, like so many things that come out of his mouth. But when you say that Congress passed this wonderfully titled
the House.
Right. That's the problem. The House has passed hundreds of things in the last couple of years that get to the Senate and go away. We don't get them. How?
I know, but we're now less than 70 days till the election. It is around the corner. I mean, we can do a countdown now to how many days it is. And so we just have to keep pushing and fighting and making sure. I was shocked. I don't know about you, but maybe I underestimated the American people. When I saw that the majority of Americans supported the goals of Black Lives Matter, using those words, Black Lives Matter, I thought we have definitely made some progress here, that people are seeing the injustice right before their eyes. When millions and millions of people around the world saw a cold-blooded murder, just watched it, and we're still seeing it, and Jacob Blake is an Evanston boy. I was at a event, just a little community gathering. So I honestly think that we have the upper hand here. I just don't think people are that stupid as to think we're gonna. This is an attack on Winnetka, and which is in my district, and they're lovely people, and they're not going to be in favor of this kind of attack on African Americans and anybody of color.
Jan, how will voters gain confidence if their votes are going to be counted this November? Should we believe DeJoy, the head of the post office? Have we seen a reversal of the dismantling of the Postal Service? And your take on the status of voter suppression everywhere?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the only way that Donald Trump can win. And so he's putting everything he's got into doing just that. First of all, let me just tell you, the Postal Service is the most popular agency of government. And that is true in red states and rural states who rely even more on the Postal Service. So I know that they're getting pushback on that in that regard. DeJoy, lied to Congress, said this all happened before he even got there in May. That's just not true. This slowdown, getting the machinery taken away, this is his. So I do have confidence that in the time that we have left, look, we just won a lawsuit in Rhode Island. Now you can have vote by mail. We have lawyers are all over the country just swarming, our lawyers. But in addition to that, I've never seen such an outpouring of just ordinary constituents saying, save the post office, and complaining about the slowdown. We hear a lot from people not being able to get their medications, their bills aren't coming on time, which means they get late payments when they, when they pay those bills, they're not getting their checks. Who's being hurt by this? It's people who really rely on the Postal Service. And so I feel optimistic. The other advice, though, that I would have is if you're voting by mail, vote as soon as possible. You don't want to get close to Election Day when they'll say, well, even though it's postmarked for November 3rd, we didn't get it until then, we can't count it. So, if you get it, return the request for a ballot, get it back, and vote. The other thing you should know is you can take a vote by mail and deposit it, and this is true certainly in Illinois, at an early voting place. You don't have to go through the Postal Service. And finally, I just want to say, those who can ought to consider voting on Election Day. We want to win on Election Day. In other words, if Trump wins because his people all vote in person on Election Day, if his numbers are up, and then the others come in, he'll say, see, I told you, that this vote by mail thing is, it's crooked, it's not right. So anyway, I think that we need to do all three. We need to vote early, we need to vote by mail, but we also need to vote in person.
Jan, switching to the pandemic, we certainly have seen our public health system and its fragility exposed during the lack of a national response or an effective one to the pandemic. The U.S. has the biggest infection rate of the whole world.
Oh no, we're doing the best of any country in the world. Listen to
I think
Donald.
you're reflecting the past week's convention talk a little bit. But I've heard you talk about this being an opportunity, and I'm curious to hear, what are you and your colleagues talking about is the opportunity in addressing the nation's health issues because of this crisis?
Well,
what
it is
will
really,
we see if we're successful in November to change the way things are, that leave so many people out?
I think what this pandemic has absolutely done is unveil so many inequities, not the least of which is in healthcare. And we know the disparate number of people of color who have died. And I've been focusing a lot on nursing homes, on where in Illinois, nursing home cases of COVID-19 are 12% of all the cases, but 55% of the deaths. So, nursing homes now who have been in trouble for a while, we need to deal with that too. But I think it does open the door to saying we have to do something serious about healthcare, including a serious consideration of Medicare for all. Look, a lot of people who thought they were okay with their employer providing their health insurance now understood that employee-supported healthcare system insurance is not necessarily going to be there. So we're going to have a very robust conversation about where do we go. It may not be all in one step, but we're going to see serious changes. I think, what we know about Biden is that he's in favor of a public option, some sort of Medicare choice for people, which is an okay start. But I think we're going to be able to push forward.
I'm glad to hear you say that it's a start.
Yeah.
The couple things that we've been talking about here, including the Green New Deal, which because of what's going on weather-wise all over right now as we speak, let's pray for the people in Texas and Louisiana. The Green New Deal and the inclusion therein of a 21st century version of the Conservation Corps, the Civilian Conservation Corps, a group, something that could put kids to work in their neighborhoods, rebuilding neighborhoods, planting gardens. This is the kind of action that people are actually imagining in the wake of COVID, that remaking things. When people say defund the police, they really mean defund the police, turn it around. Do you think this moment, do we have the kind of commitment that can make that happen reasonably for the population?
Well, you know what? I saw something leading up to the convention where we had this unity task force that put together the platform of our convention, and Bernie Sanders and of course Joe Biden participated fully in this with Kamala Harris. I think we have a very progressive senator. I know my dear friend Barbara Lee, who I trust to be the progressive of all progressives, absolutely adores her and loves her, which gives me a lot of faith that she's known her for a long time. So I think, really, I'm glad to hear you dreaming about the kinds of things that we can do, because it's not far away and we better be ready for it. And so, you know, the Green New Deal, are you kidding me? You know, the kinds of storms that we're seeing right now, you know, we don't have to talk about the future. We have to talk about the present right now and how devastated our planet is right now. So I think these are, you know, people say, well, what's going to be the first thing that we're going to do? We have to do it all. We have to put together a comprehensive agenda for America. And I think we're a good part of the way there to make the change. I don't know if any of you have ever gone to the Lyndon B. Johnson Museum and Library, but they passed at that time one after another. I mean, what it must have been to be in that Congress, from the Voting Rights Act to Head Start to all these, you know, programs that got done, not to mention all the New Deal years and those programs. You know, we don't have to dig too deep to figure out what we need to do. We just have to get busy.
Jan,
we have to win.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on having Republicans speak at the Democratic convention, but not having any people from the progressive wing of the party. Really, I mean, we had progressives up there, but we didn't have the so-called squad. And I'm just wondering if you have any take on that.
Well, if you're talking about not having four particular people up there, I mean, I felt like the message in general was very progressive. And you know what? I'm sorry. I just don't think it hurts for some of these Republicans to say we cannot stomach Donald Trump, and we're going to get our people out too, and our families are not going to put up with that crap either. I don't think that it's a bad thing, and I don't think that the message of the convention. Let me just tell you, there is a whole wing of the campaign headed by Heather Booth, which I think many of you know as a long
Been on our show.
What?
I say she's been on our show.
Yeah, and well, you know, Heather is in charge of mobilizing progressives for the campaign. That's her job, along with senior citizens, which is a special.
Mobilizing who for the campaign?
Progressives.
Progressive.
I mean, she is chair of that staff wing of the party to mobilize progressives. There are weekly meetings now with the Trump campaign from progressive leaders around the country, many different, very, very diverse group. It's not a closed circle. And so I feel very optimistic with Heather there, and making sure, and my husband, Bob Creamer, is working to help, and other leading progressives to make sure that our message is going
Okay.
to be there.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt you and ask, what about the period of time between the landslide that we all are very dedicated to delivering on November 3rd, between November 3rd and January 20? We're a little concerned about what the unstable genius might, be inclined to do. How is DC and our protectors preparing for that moment?
Yeah, first of all, you understand that the whole convention was illegal, really, using the White House and all the public buildings.
Yeah.
But when Donald Trump loses, I'm telling you, I do not believe that true patriots, and I'm talking about people in the military as well, are going to let him, despite the fact the president has the nuclear codes in his pocket, which is a horrifying experience. But I'm telling you, I don't see him getting away with a whole lot. It would be so obvious that they are trying to just subvert what the American people have just declared, that they are done with him and finished. So I think that even within a good part of the administration, there's going to be people who are going to build a wall, if you will, around him, and not let him get away with changing the direction of the country in that short time. We have to be vigilant. There's no question about it. And we're going to have everybody out there protesting if he gets out of hand, and then our lawyers and everybody else at work. There is such a thing. Do I have my Constitution right here? I had it. I usually have it written in. There is the rule of law. I don't think most people are ready to give it up. So, but none of this is going to be easy. None of this is going to be easy. That's why people, we fell for that poll thing the last time. Oh, Hillary's going to win. Hillary's going to win. Don't worry about it. We can't fall for any of that. Again, we have absolutely got to get every single vote out and then push forward our agenda immediately and watch them carefully during that scary time.
Yeah.
Jan
Jim, do
Schakowsky,
you see
our
any-
wonderful representative from the 9th District of Illinois, we thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate the moments that you were able to share with us. I don't know if you have any parting thoughts, but we've got a lot of hard work in front of us.
I love the three of you so much, and it just feels so good to be with you. And, we need to be working together. You represent the progressives, not only in our community, but around the country, around the world. And so let's have a plan, and let's get everybody out to vote. This is existential. We have to win. And we can't be spending our time, if Joe were just this or Joe were just that. We can say it, once in a while to each other, but we have to have a plan to overcome those kinds of things when we win, and we have to win.
So two things we didn't get to, Jan, fair tax and the census. We're a little concerned about an undercount, and we're a little concerned also that Illinois passes the fair tax, but we'll keep working on that.
Okay, I'm with you on those, both of those.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, darling.
Love
Thanks
you
a lot.
Be
Love you.
well. Stay well.
Too. Bye.
All right.
Tom, give us some news on the Sunday market, etc.
Well, I just want to say that we're so fortunate to have Jan with us. And as we close out with a few more comments here, Jan, you're welcome to jump in, but you don't have to.
Right.
We do have a lot of stuff going on in the neighborhood. Glenwood Sunday Market was jammed the last couple of weekends. You don't have to pre-order. You can walk up. Social distancing is very much in play, and the farmers around the Midwest dearly love your business. Also want to point out that our major food giveaway programs in the neighborhood are challenged by new regs out of the feds. We'll talk about that more next week. But Food Without Bombs is having trouble distributing free food because of new regulations that have come through. Fortunately, a Just Harvest still has its feeding program going on, and the Rogers Park Community Response Team continues to do its good work.
And we are still planning to march for the in communities in the nursing homes on Sunday. I want to say that while Jan's here. There's going to be a march on Sheridan Road. In about 5 of those places, there have been over 700 positive cases, and over 100 deaths. So that's still going on. Sorry, guys.
On the
little
sport
bit of-
front,
A little bit of sports news. We saw an amazing outpouring from the National Basketball
Yes.
Association. Started with the Milwaukee Bucks. It spread to the whole league. It spread to baseball. It spread to women's basketball. It spread to soccer. Doc Rivers from the Clippers really said, this thing about we're the ones getting killed and shot. How do we keep loving this country and it doesn't love us back?
So touching, so touching, incredible.
It was really a heavy move. It's kind of earth shaking.
Yeah.
So we know that athletes always had a good head on their shoulder, and they certainly are showing it. We want to thank everybody who tuned in, who watched us in whatever format you saw us. We're rebroadcast every Saturday at WLUW 88.7 at 9 a.m. And we are on CAN TV now. Check their schedule. We are also, anytime you want to see it, at youtube.com/heartlandmedia. Our whole team is Lynn Orman, James Porter, Susan Clark, as well as Katie, Tom, and myself. We encourage you all to continue to do good in the world because
the world needs all the good we do.
We do. And
All
Tom,
power
to the people.
to the people.
power to the people.